Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I'm happy to bring on entrepreneurs onto this podcast to create a space where people can listen in, get motivated, inspired. And so today I have Lance Cayko, and he's a serial entrepreneur. He's co-founder of an architecture and construction firms in Colorado. And he's going to talk to us all about entrepreneurship, building, architecture, real estate, and it's going to be a really fascinating conversation. So Lance, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Christopher. It's a pleasure to be here.
Us of inside the firm and talk to people about your journey. And you actually talk about this concept of architect as entrepreneur. And so enlighten us. I'm really interested in the origin story.
Yeah, and just to be clear, you're asking like from the beginning, right? Kind of what let me hear.
Yeah, what got you started into entrepreneurship and your early
Oh,
experiences?
okay. I grew up in Northwest North Dakota, and in between a cattle ranch and a sugar beet slash durum farm, and I would say lower middle class at best, honestly. For example, one summer we had so little money that my mom I didn't get another pair of shoes. I was had to wear these aqua socks. If anybody old enough listening and remembers what those things are, they don't last very long. It was very embarrassing. They were like falling apart, and I hated that. I hated that feeling. And then growing up, it was just always there was this huge anxiety around money. I remember back in the AOL days of the internet when I got my first computer that my aunt kind of gifted me. I used that dial-up service to get on the internet, and the number you would call would go all the way over to Fargo, North Dakota, so about 500 miles on the other side of the state. And one day, my mom and dad get this bill in the mail for about $1,000, and you would have thought that they got a bill for $1 million. It was just such a big deal to them. They were like, "Do we have to take out a personal loan? How are we going to pay for all this other thing?" And when I think of $1,000 now, by no means am I as rich as somebody like Elon Musk whatsoever. But I do not worry about $1,000 in the same way that they did, where it was like earth shattering. You would have thought again they were having to give up their firstborn child, me, in that kind of way. So then later on in life, everything kind of clicked for me about why I am the way I am. After I heard one of my favorite rappers, Kanye West, now Ye, his one of the lyrics I just live by is that having money isn't everything, but not having it is. And when it was phrased like that, after I heard my mom and my dad constantly say having money isn't everything, but when he completed it with not having it is, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense actually. If you don't have money, that's your whole existence. Like it's like if you don't have food, then if you don't have food, then all you're trying to do is get the food. You don't have water, trying to get the water. Same thing with homeless and stuff like that. So I grew up in that environment with that high anxiety around money, and I just hated it so much. And so I am a reaction to that environment, right? So when I was 13 years old, my dad and I tried to work together one summer. That would have been my first job, and it would have been irrigating these sugar beets with him. Northwest North Dakota in the summer it's very hot, it's very humid, and the mosquitoes are just atrocious up there. And it wasn't that I was so adverse to the hard work. I'm a very hard worker. I have a lot of discipline in what I do. You have to be in order to do all the things that I do. But I didn't get along with my dad at all. I just hated the environment, that work and everything. And I go, hey, I lasted about a week. I was like, I'm not going to I can't do this anymore. And he goes, okay, you got to do something. I'm not here to raise kids that don't know how to work and all that other stuff. And I said, sure. How about I call up your best friend, Bruce? And his best friend was a contractor. And I called up Bruce that night and I said, hey, I've always wanted to get into construction. I like building stuff. I see the lack of, this is more of a subconscious thing. I could just see the lack of anxiety he had about money. It was just night and day for my mom and dad and how they did it. So Bruce was the first entrepreneur that I even ever knew, right? And he said, yep, you can, I have a job for you. I'll pay $7.25 an hour and you can be my gopher. And I was all excited and I go, oh, cool. What's that? And he goes, well, when you go for things, that's it. You can come up on the roof and learn how to roof with us when you're done going for the things. And that's why you're the gopher. I was the best dang gopher that he ever had. The job site was always clean. It was always well prepared and all the other things. And I was able to go up on the roof and learn how to roof that summer. About halfway through the summer, Bruce kind of noticed something in me that he didn't notice, I think, in a lot of the other people that he hired before. And he noticed some potential. So one day he pop quizzed me and he goes, Lance, I pay you $7.25 an hour. What do you think I'm paying? What do you think I'm charging for 1 hour of your labor to the owners? And I go, $7.25 an hour. And he laughed, and I said, well, why are you laughing? He goes, that's not the way this works. He goes, I'm charging them 3 to 4 times what I pay you. And I go, why? And he explained profit, he explained overhead, he explained risk. He explained how a business works, if you're doing a service-based business. And then, and then we talked about products and markups and stuff in that kind of way too. And as soon as he told me that was kind of like unlocking Pandora's box for me. I mean, it all clicked, and I was like, oh, I want to be like Bruce. And I was like, the way to get to be like Bruce is, if he's a general contractor, is I have learned all these different trades of construction: concrete, tile, framing, the whole thing. So every summer after that, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, all those years, I would go work a different trade of construction to try to learn how to do the foundations, the framing and all of that, because I wanted to be like Bruce. I was a mediocre lower B level student in high school because I grew up in a town of 500 people. And when I'm a type of person that thrives on choice, personal choice. And I just wasn't into school because, not that I couldn't be I tested for a very high IQ when I was younger and tested very high on my ACTs and all of that. It was just, I didn't have the freedom to pick what I wanted to do. I went to tech school for 2 years after high school and I went and pursued in Wapaton, North Dakota State School of Science, building construction technology, which basically teaches you how to be a contractor like Bruce. And all of a sudden, when I got there and I got to pick what I wanted to do, I was a straight A student. I started winning a bunch of scholarships. I got to the end of my sophomore year there, and the capstone was building a house. And I started rolling out the blueprints, and they were actual blueprints too. And I said, I started looking at them, and I'm very much a why and need to know why, kind of A to B answers person. And so I was like, well, why did the architects draw this the way they did? And I thought, man, I love school. I figured out how to basically monetize it. I'm getting paid to go to school with all these scholarships and everything. And I want to be like Bruce, but I could really be like Bruce if I was the architect first and the builder second. Because usually people you got to have the plans first before you build the house, right? So people come to the architects first. So I applied to North Dakota State University, 45 minutes north, after I completed my building construction technology degree. And the same sort of pattern happened there. It was my decision to go into architecture school. I thrived. I graduated at the end. I won the Peter F. McKenzie Award, graduated at the top of my class, and then moved down here to Boulder, Colorado, only to get laid off about nine months later after I had my first real internship. And it was all because of the Great Recession. Everything just took a big crap in the Great Recession. The economy sucked. But the lesson with that was, the people I went to work for, they were such bad business people that I never wanted to be subject to other bad business people in that way. So I said, well, I don't ever want to get laid off like that again, because it was completely dejecting. It was, the drive home was horrible. I had to tell my wife, call my granny, call my mom. It's horrible. And I said, I never want to feel like that way again. So the only way I'm ever going to not feel that way again is if I'm the boss. I could lay myself off, but that's about it. And so that's the kind of summation of what brought me to do all of these things: architect, builder, real estate developer, podcaster, in that kind of way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that story, and it's the story of the entrepreneur, which you clearly are. Talk about this idea of this where you talk about, you have this architect and you have it as entrepreneur, builder, developer. I'm really curious that mindset around how you think of yourself as these kind of everything. And you're talking about, this general contractor kind of finding the skills to create a job. So talk about that.
So remember, it all goes back to, okay, I somehow was able to identify at a very young age, about 20, that, man, I could really command and have such an easier, better sales pipeline if I'm the architect first. If I'm the architect first, that doesn't mean I need to build for everybody. It means I would only maybe build for a select kind of clients. Maybe they're cash buyers. Maybe they're within a very certain radius. Maybe it's a project like I actually want to build rather than have to build to eat. So that all plays into it. the final evolution to become a real estate developer, full-fledged real estate developer, where you're wearing all three hats essentially at that point. And a lot of real estate developers can't. That's what was so interesting about becoming an architect first, basically, as a profession, is because, like, an architect can be a builder, an architect can be a real estate developer, but it usually doesn't work in reverse. The real estate developers, they can't be architects as well, typically, because they don't have the training in the school and the taking all the tests and everything. The builder, same thing. They don't have that architect, but I've proven if you do architect first, then you can branch out from there. So the idea is, again, it's in reaction to having money isn't everything, not having it is. If I'm wearing all three of those hats, I get paid 3 times instead of 1, right? And actually, then if I am the right kind of developer where I hold on to some of the property that I developed and keep it as an investment property, then I can kind of get perpetually paid for it until I die, right? Like in 5 different ways, if you hold on to real estate, you make money. You pay down the principal, you can make extra rent money, there's taxes involved with it, all kinds of stuff in the way you can make money off of it. So the idea is that then there's the idea of just trying to be like self-sustainable and creating your own business and entrepreneurial ecosystem. So like all 3 of my businesses in that way talk to each other. The architecture can feed the construction, then the construction can feed the architecture side, because then the people who come into my office go, oh, you're not like a regular architect. You're like something different. Like I trust you that you'll know how these buildings go together. It's not just going to be pretty lines on paper and that sort of thing. And then the real estate developer aspect actually helps us get more confidence with other real estate investors and developers who want to hire us as the architect. Because they go like, oh, this guy can speak my language. Most architects can't speak that language. So that's the idea, and the whole thing to sum it up is like what happened. What used to be the architect, he used to Michelangelo, right? One of the most famous architects ever in the Renaissance. He was the master builder. Architects used to actually do all the things. They used to finance the projects, they used to build it, they used to draw it, and that's what I'm trying to kind of reestablish and inspire in other people is, especially if they're thinking about going on the path I do, is like, you're very powerful as an architect if you just take on more responsibility and try to be those additional things.
I love how you're because there's this great interview I heard from Bill Ackerman, and he was talking about his first jobs, and he was saying he learned that the rich people, they didn't work for time, they worked for projects. So, basically if he could create a lot of value as efficiently as possible, his per hour time could skyrocket, and which is what you're describing. And I love that. And how you're basically creating value, you're outsourcing experts in different fields, could be construction, could be different things. One thing is talking about is what I loved is this idea, discipline equals freedom. And you were saying in your early days with your dad, it sounded like you wanted to work smarter. And if you work smarter plus harder, it could get you better results as opposed to just working just harder and harder.
So the discipline equals freedom is actually a way to define creating space and time for yourself and other people that matter in your life. So, because initially when you hear that phrase, it's like, is that possible? It seems like it's actually counterintuitive, right? We're like, wow, so if I'm more disciplined, I'm more free. Why? That doesn't make any sense. But it does on a surface level, I get that, but then you got to dive deeper in, right? So a perfect example is I used to say that I make appointments for myself all the time, or that I schedule everything. But now I've rephrased it as, no, I make appointments for myself. I make appointments for my friends. I make appointments for the people I care about. I make appointments for my clients. I run a very strict, disciplined calendar, right? And I use just Google Calendar for that. But every single time frame, minus maybe like after supper, is accounted for. So, that's how I'm able to teach at 2 universities, run 2 different firms, the construction firm, the architecture firm, maintain all the properties, real estate investment wise, do all the podcasts and everything like that. So I'm very deliberate and then disciplined on when I carve out time for things. So then that allows me to be, more free in my efforts about what I want to do, because I've taken control of the situation rather than like being behind the ball and letting life kind of jerk me around and pull me around. It's like, nope, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and have my golden hours, 5 to 7 a.m. before anybody's up, and get going ahead of my day, and everybody will be behind me because of my discipline in that way.
Yeah, you said it so well, and especially being proactive, and you talk about controlling your time and your freedom and controlling your income, as opposed to traditional people. They apply for a job, they work for somebody, that's in somebody else's hands, and you're talking about taking control, being proactive, which I really love. Most entrepreneurs I talk to, they wake up early because they've got this hour of just uninterrupted, and the more I spend time around kids, the more I need that hour of uninterruption so you can just purely focus. And then, when
Yep.
life hits you, you can just, go with it. What is it like to be a serial entrepreneur? What is your definition? And kind of what does it feel like? What does it look like? And kind of fundamental keys to business success.
I think if you're a serial entrepreneur, you almost can't, you're almost addicted. It's like a weird addiction. I just met with Rob Taylor of, what do they call it? Something Tiny Homes. They're basically, he's taking a franchise from California and he's bringing it to Colorado. And he and I just clicked in almost every single way. Even though we're very both like type A, alpha, that type of personality, there was a mutual respect that came out during the dinner we had last Friday, talking about how our businesses are trying to work together and grow and all of that. And we both kind of said it at the same time. We're like, he started telling me about all his businesses. I was telling him about mine, and I go, you can't stop either, Kenny. He goes, no, it's too fun. It's so fun. It's so fun. Like entrepreneurs are very special people, I think. And that's just not me tooting my horn, because they're not adverse to risk. They actually are very comfortable with a high level of risk and a high comfortability of just being in the unknown. And I think what happens is when you become a serial entrepreneur, like, yes, you have to have some success at least one business. And after you get that business off the ground and it's running, and you can kind of pull away just a little bit, and you're reaping the rewards, the dividends, the client testimonials, products, whatever you're doing, and all that stuff, then you're like, man, that was fun. It was so hard, but it was so fun. It's a new adventure and it's a new challenge. So I think for me, it's just an addiction. And I think an addiction and an affliction in a really positive way. It's positive drama too, overall. Like, yes, there is some negative drama, of course, that goes on with it. But that's the way I would describe it in the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah. The more I talk to individuals such as yourself, and they're just very comfortable with just being uncomfortable, taking risk, and
Yeah.
like just taking massive risk and just kind of putting it all on the line. And it's there's highs and lows. Entrepreneurship is fun, but it's not for the faint of hearted.
Because what people on the opposite side of the spectrum, God bless them. We need people that just want to show up 8 to 5, get their job done, go home and watch football. I need those people. But what they have is they usually have analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
And so they analyze themselves, the situation, the idea that they're going to pursue, to the point where they go, I can't do it. It just seems like there's too many unknowns and I can't get comfortable with it. And I dive maybe headfirst, sometimes too much.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think my faith in God has always helped me keep grace. I feel like there's always grace around me, like protecting me at the limits of that.
I love that. And what a fantastic way to end a very special conversation about serial entrepreneur from an entrepreneur himself. And how can people find out more about you and reach out to you and contact you?
Reason if you go to linkedin.com and you just type in Lance, Lance, last name Cayko, Cayko, I will link in with you. No matter what, you can reach out to me there. People do that once I'm on shows like this, and then they ask for advice, and we can go from there.
And for all the audience out there, be sure to give Lance a like and follow on all of his socials. These links will be in the resources. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.